Good evening, everybody. How you doing? And welcome to the Essential Credentials YouTube channel. This is episode 11 of the Side Credentials. I'm again joined by my good friend, he's over here, Ben Mercer, back. We are doing our second episode of the week because we're going to have a bit of a break before our episode to end the year. So we wanted to come back and kind of jump right in because we ended talking about some big super collectors selling off their collections. And so it's going to be really fun to dive into what we do, what the game plan is when people do sell out. But before we get there, obviously, Ben, how you doing tonight, man? How's your weekend, Ben?
It's been good, pretty relaxing. I have a decent mail day coming in tomorrow that I'm excited about. So that's sort of been on my mind. I've got 2 big Ichiro cards coming in. One of those that had to go through eBay authentication that I'll have to sign for. So I'll be just working tomorrow at the house, sitting like waiting for that doorbell to go off so I can sign quickly and be like, yes, they're here. Yes, I got them.
The advantages from working at home, you get to get the mail as soon as it arrives, man. You get to sign for packages and all that stuff. Oh, yeah.
So that's been on my mind. But overall, good weekend. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's been really nice, man. A pretty relaxing weekend. You know, we had a work party on Friday, which was pretty cool to be around, 150 plus people from Upper Deck bowling. And I did solid. I had one of the better scores, so I feel pretty good about that.
Yes, dude. Everyone, even if people aren't into sports, they have to be kind of competitive, right? A little bit.
Mean,
like you have to feel good.
You get a feel for it, and it was definitely fun. Jason, who people know, he's like the dude that runs the whole company right now. He was out there just throwing strikes and like, all right, this guy can do a little bit of something here. But it was really fun. Got to meet some new people, just, have a good time and compete with myself mainly. But yeah, it was really
You're
cool.
The new guy too. It's like, show your dominance a little bit. Like, hey, I'm new, but hey, I can throw.
That was more just trying to show that I was supportive of everybody trying to, it's you either do that or you get really competitive, right? So
yeah.
That was really good. Yeah, Luke, you made it. Can we get a golf clap for Luke making it? Yeah, good job, Luke. You did it. So Luke gonna ask for comments here real soon. So be ready with the phone or keyboard. But yeah, it was a great weekend, man. Got a couple of nice cards in. Got some stuff put into trading card database. Got all my cards put away that came in.
Nice.
So that was really cool. I guess since we are. Let's see if I can pull it up here. I have a really cool picture of the card that did come in, and I guess I'll show that really quick because one advantage to working where I do now is that I get to see images of stuff before it comes out. And so I can get hyped up a little bit more and also prep, for stuff that's coming out financially, right? So one card that we just released on Wednesday is in Upper Deck Artifacts, and it's called Antiquity, which is stuff that we've done, but this is more of like a stained glass card. I'm sure you've seen it because you were on Instagram, but those who have not, wow, that's really bright, isn't it? It's not supposed to be, but it's pretty cool, man. I thought it turned out really, really well, and I'm really, really pleased with the picture.
Is it acetate?
Yeah, it's acetate. Yep, sure is. It's not very thick either. It's very thin acetate. So yeah, really, really happy to have been able to grab a copy of this early. Cool thing is the guy is in San Diego. So for me, it got here in a day, which was pretty sick.
Nice.
So really happy that came in. And again, I think it's just so cool to be involved with a company that makes stuff that I, enjoy collecting and obviously will hopefully get to make at some point. But other than that, man, it was really chill. And, I got a big fantasy football matchup going on right now. It's going to come down to the Seahawks game. I got two players in the special teams / defense from Seattle. So hopefully my dad, who's at the game with my sister, will bring some good luck and they'll get a W.
There we go.
Some crazy stats today. But other than that, dude, excited to get going on this episode. Really going to be fun to kind of come up with some guidelines together. I think that's going to be the most fun. Again, we mentioned in the last episode, and I'll throw this to you, Ben, is like Ray decided he's going to sell his collection off. And for anybody that doesn't know, we had Ray Gerke on here a few episodes ago, and he's the Ichiro collector, like the guy. icollectichiro.com. Go look at that collection. You will not be disappointed. And he decided that he's going to sell off his collection. So Ben you hit me up and basically asked me what?
It's like, how do you go about contacting someone like that? How would you even organize what stuff you might want to reach out and ask if it's available from them? Like if you're trying to work out a deal, how would you organize what you would be interested in? Do you go for like one big card or 100 cards that are maybe rare that you might not see again, but you could grab them all at once? How do you
Right.
organize like the ask and trying to make a deal with someone that might be selling off a big collection that has a bunch of cards you are interested in?
It's very overwhelming just at the initial thought of what do I do here, isn't it?
Oh yeah, because you also, I'll say with Ray and Thomas is the other one, the Griffey collector is selling off right now at the same time. Where I also am interested in a lot of the stuff he has, Griffey cards, and it's like, when's the right time to reach out? I mean, that's an investment. That's years of their time they've spent collecting these cards, and as a like a bereavement period where you don't like reach out and feel greedy right away, like, you're selling, so like, what can I get from you? You know, you don't want to come off that way.
Right.
You want to give them time to like get things organized, figure out what they want to do, but you also want to put your name out there, like, hey, I'm interested. You know, there's some things from your collection that I think are incredible. It rules that you were able to get those cards, and if I can be in line to get some of those, I would be really excited. But it's organizing how the collections, especially for these super collectors, are so big. You have to figure out, you can't just like have them. Most people can't just have the money sitting aside, like ready, like, oh, okay, they're selling, I'm going to have $15,000 just ready to spend right now. Like, that's not really how it works. So you kind of have to figure out what your budget is, what you're looking for, what might check the boxes for you. You're really excited to get those cards that you have, you know. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you might as well pop in and say it. I mean,
yeah.
Can I just jump in on this real quick? I love, and I'm not hating here, I promise. I'm not throwing shade, but it is funny when like the bigger super collectors of certain players, like if you were to post them looking for Ichiro, you think like it's like when guys who are like Matt Boldy super collector, and in his story it says looking for Boldy cards.
It's like, yeah, get in line.
Like you are like, I would never have guessed. So
right.
I mean, it's just funny, Luke, because like if anybody had Larkins for sale, we're all just sending them to you. You know, like I feel like that's one of those things where, like you're saying, Ben, people are not reaching out to you. If Raven say, "Hey, I'm going to sell. What are you after?" You run into this like, how fast should I be? Oh, speaking of which, how fast should I be messaging this person? This is great.
There's literally,
Ray, because Ray, this kind of revolves around you. If you saw the last episode too, so feel free to jump in with some comments, Ray. I think these are going to be great.
I would love to know, like from Ray's perspective, what it's like when you have a collection and you have like the provenance of your collection. I've told Ray this before, like getting cards from Ray, I'm like, oh, I got this from the Ray collection. Like to me, that's like when you get one that has like the PSA slab that's like from, you know, the Diamondback collection or something. It's like, for me, it's like, that's from Ray's collection. So it actually means more to me.
Right.
But I can't imagine with like the collection he has, like the amount of people that are trying to contact him. And like, the guilt I have even thinking about asking Ray for cards is like one thing I'm struggling with as someone that's trying to get cards from potentially Ray when he's liquidating. Like I have cards that I have, you know, a true emotional connection with. That if I said I'm selling off my collection, I really wouldn't like people like pinging me to ask for that card that's on my Instagram. That like, you know, maybe I know someone that has reached out before, I have a connection with, that maybe I'm going to offer them the card first and like give me a little bit of time. It's you know, this is something I've done for a decade plus, that like I don't need people like DMing me.
I think everybody has their preference, so it's going to be nice to have, you know, we've got Luke here, we've got Ray here. I'm not sure who else is watching, but it's going to be great to come up with these guidelines that we can then show on screen for people who watch this and think to themselves, well, I know somebody who's a big super collector of the player I want, and they are selling their collection. What do I do? Like, how do I approach such a monumental task? Because
gotta be so overwhelming. Any person that's selling off a collection, unless you're maybe Tanner Jones that just sells it all in one bulk lot, like he did that one time. That was
nice to
insane.
go there. Yeah,
But that is a crazy person thing to do, to be like, here's all of my collection. I'm just going to sell over to one person.
right.
Weird transaction and very unusual. Like that's not how it's going to go most of the time.
For sure. I do want to say hi to James. Shout out to James Stinger when I was living in Washington. He helped us get some really good seats to a Mariners game where they didn't score very much, as they typically did when I went. But unless Tyler Glasnow was pitching, not sure how that works, but that's how it worked 2 summers ago. But yeah, welcome, James. And then Ray said, it's been a humbling experience and honestly a very slow process, as I'm sure it is for a lot of people in that situation. I really want to get the right cards, get the cards into the right hands to people that I know that will appreciate them as much as I have. And I think when you and I talked, Ben, Ray, just a little insight for you. When Ben called me up on my lunch break, I'm doing my 2 laps like I usually do, get my mile walk in the afternoon. He's like, Matt, what advice would you offer here? And being somebody who's purchased cards from a Flurry, not to Ray's level, there's only one guy on Ray's level equal with like the Flurry collection. And if he ever sells off, I mean, I don't even know how I would approach that. It would be even
Matt,
worse.
you're taking out a loan. It's going to be a problem.
But you know, I did have some experience, and so I was able to kind of share some insight on what I would appreciate, and I'm sure you knowing Ray and us knowing Ray, what he would appreciate, as opposed to, hey, I want these cards more than everyone else, so put these in my pile type thing. So what we're going to do here, and feel free, everybody that's in the chat, feel free to give your input. I have a Word document in front of me. And as we go on and as we have this conversation, if there's like say not a rule, but like a guideline that we can put on a document so that we ourselves can follow this, and also you as viewers can look and say, well, the Super Collector is selling off. Maybe I should think about these things. Not like you have to do this, but here's some things to think about, right? Before you go on and try to get these wonderful cards that someone like Ray or ourselves have spent years and years and years of our time and energy and money to put into a collection. So let's start with, this question, Ben. I'm just going to throw this to you and feel free to kind of bounce them off Ray or myself, since Ray's in the chat, or whoever else. So our first question, everyone, is what's the very first thing you should do or think about doing when you hear that the player you collect, that a super collector of that player is deciding to sell the whole collection? What is, just throw some out there. We'll see which one sticks. What's the first thing you thought of, Ben?
Budget is the first thing that comes to mind.
Figure out your budget.
Yeah. What is your budget?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And to piggyback on what you were saying, like, and we kind of mentioned it earlier, like we're seeing more of this with people like Brian and other folks, like selling whole collections to do something else with their lives. Like, life happens, you want to change something about your life, with the value that some of these collections have, people are just deciding, and I see more of this potentially happening this next calendar year. So I think it's a pertinent topic for people that want to continue to collect. Your player might come up.
Right. I mean, I don't know which one's worse, to be honest with you. Yeah. So,
both of those are going to be brutal.
Yeah, no joke. Jeez Louise. Oh geez, I'm trying to, my formatting is going haywire here. Okay, so I've got what is your budget? I mean, that's the biggest one, right? Because of course, if Ray, someone like Ray is selling his entire collection, okay, the ultimate auto. Everybody wants one of those from Ichiro. Who wouldn't, right? Yeah. The Future Watch out of 50, the limited. I think it's
the limited out of 50. Yep.
Yeah. Huge card. You've got, obviously, is there a parallel to the SPX or Jersey Auto? Did they do
no, just the one.
Okay, how about the Essential Credentials?
That one's out of 29. So like, good luck.
Huge cards, but your budget is going to determine what you can start daydreaming or thinking about. So after you've determined your budget, what is step 2?
So for me, the next thing that comes to mind is, what cards have I looked for, come across before that I don't have, that I would be excited to have, that I haven't seen a copy of before? So scarcity
that
for me
are very rare, that haven't been seen before, or
Because it might be scarcity, but sometimes it'll be something that's out of 50 that you'll see pop up. And then sometimes there's something out of 100 that you just never see, never comes up. So like scarcity when you actually are searching or you are aware of the card, you know maybe that super collector has it, but you just never see it come up anywhere in your searches or when you're talking with other collectors.
I put what cards would I want that are very rare, that haven't been seen that often. And in parentheses, I have SSP or out of 25 or less. Now, obviously 50, 100, there's some that never get seen. But for me, I'm thinking, you know, those cards that are that rare might come up once every 2 or 3 years. And those are the ones you should prioritize. So that's good thinking.
Yeah, like I can even think off the top of my head, there was the 2002 Upper Deck 40 man, which was like a 900 card checklist. And they did the electric rainbow. It was at a 40.
Yeah.
I mean, good luck ever finding the Ichiro, like opening packs of that 900 card checklist. Every single one is a parallel.
Right.
You'll never get it. So that's one of those you see it and you're like, that's the one I should grab.
This is a good point that Luke brings up, but he's already got, kind of like I do with my visual want list, which I've shared before. You know, he's got these buy when I see it cards, and those are the ones that you prioritize already. So if those were to come up for sale, you're going to probably want to target those first. And so I think it's something I can add here. Do you already have a, we'll say top 25 want list?
Yeah.
Buy cards from that first. I mean, there are a couple cards I don't have on my visual want list that are so rare. I'm like, well, mine's a realistic want list, right? Yeah. Like, what can I afford? What am I hoping that I'll see in the near future, if not in the next few years? And so I think those are the more realistic options for everybody, right? But there might be one, like you're saying, like a shoot for the moon type deal where you say, hey, you know, you happen to have this parallel out of 10, or this, you know, like the mirror gold from a set. And it's like, oh, you actually do. So, you know, you got to have those in the back of your mind, but I think you got to be realistic with what you can try to get, you know? And then what do you think about this? Like, do you send somebody like Ray a list of 100 cards?
Ray, I have not done this, but I do have a very long list on my phone from your website that I have not sent you, Ray, and I will not. We can talk about it later.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to give you your time and space to figure out how you want to go through it. I know you mentioned you have some cards that you're going to do like auctions for, that kind of thing.
Right, exactly. And those yeah, like that.
These are the ones that I pointed out that I've made a list of on my phone from his website. They're like, yeah, I've literally have never seen one of those outside of the one Ray has. So maybe I want that one. And maybe it's not the most expensive or desirable card, but I might not see it again.
I have a question for the viewers and then for Ray too. Ray, if you could give us your input, I'll add this to the list. Like, once a super collector announces to the collecting world, like, hey, I'm selling everything, what's the appropriate amount of time before you reach out? And because I would like to hear from a collector's perspective, Luke, James, anybody else that's in the chat, and then from Ray, from a seller's perspective, how much time and space do you need? And I'm going to throw this into you or out there for you. I have only been in this position a couple of times. When I collected A-Rod, Brandt sold some of his cards. So, you know, I just kind of had a chat. I actually did a video chat with him, and he showed me like every card on my want list, which was pretty amazing to see, even if they weren't for sale. Like,
I can't afford
24 karat and all that stuff, which I think, he's sold at the right time for way more. And then I had this opportunity to buy these flurries from a father and a son who collected for many, many, many years, from like back in, you know, the 2008s and 9s when they won the first cup. And so they had darn near everything. So both situations, I feel like I took the time to build up rapport with the seller before I not demanded, but asked for a list that I could try to purchase from them. What do you think on that though? Like, how many, like, is there a set time? Because you know Ray pretty well. And if
I know Ray just a little bit because we've communicated, we've done a couple of deals together, but I would say we know each other real well. I'm not going to pretend like, oh,
All right.
Ray and I are tight.
Oh, well,
But
you fooled
but
me.
I
So,
just respect Ray a lot. So I'll be honest, like, Ray knows this. Like, I contacted him once after like 2 weeks because I gave him like 2 weeks. Like, yo, I get it. Like, I wouldn't want people all over me. I don't know Ray as well as other people that have probably collected each row more aggressively for longer that have followed Ray. So I don't want to be, I got a vibe of like me feeling like a parasite. I was like, oh, I want to get in there and like try to get stuff that maybe other people also want that have probably looked at Ray stuff and be like, whenever that comes up for sale, I'm your buyer. Like 4 years said that.
right.
So I wanted to give him some space and be like, yo, I get it. And then I sent him a message and then I actually felt bad. I was like,
Why'd you feel bad though? What made you feel bad about that?
Because I know Ichiro collectors have been in this space for like a long time and seriously collecting for a long time and really respect Ray's collection. I just feel like, and it could be all in my head, but I felt like there was like a bit of a cue where like people probably know Ray or have had a rapport with him for longer. And like, I don't want to be kind of like trying to nudge my way up. Like, hey, you did a podcast with us and like, you kind of know me, like you sold me a couple of things. So like, can I inch my way up to the front of the line kind of thing? Like I didn't want to feel guilty about it. And I didn't want to put any pressure because that's
right.
Dude's collection is crazy. It's amazing. And I don't want to be like chomping to try to like snag stuff. It's like, do your thing, take your time, do it the way you want to do it. And I'll have my list and like, maybe as it cools off, we can talk. I do think there's the other side of like, hey, if you have a rapport, totally go for it and like put your name, in the ring.
Yeah.
I know how I would feel, I guess. It's like if I
see.
The number of years I started collecting in 96 as a kid. If some of those cards I decided to start selling off now and people just started pinging me about them, like, I really want to settle like my friends or people I've known for a decade. Like, I don't want to do this quick, really. Yeah. Unless I felt pressure to, like my house burned down and I had to.
Oh, jeez.
Then, I kind of want to do it at my own pace.
Right. Well, you're thinking about yourself when it comes to this. I mean, Luke makes a really good point. So assuming it's someone I know, and by I know Luke, I'm assuming like that you've had some dialogue with rather than like personally, like Ben and I know each other. But if they announce it to me, that means they're looking to sell. Delay can only hurt. Luke is coming at it from, think about a 90s collector here. You've got the holy grail top 10 from the 90s. We know them all, right? PMG, Essential Credentials, Crusade,
24K, whatever. Yeah.
Those 10. Most people don't have them all, no matter how big of a collector you are of that player. So you've got to get to those before anybody else. Obviously, you'll probably be going against like 3 or 4 people, and who's going to, pay the asking price unless the seller is someone like Ray who wants to see them go to the right hands, and so he'll probably not overcharge you. But there's something to be said about how you're going to, like he says here, how are you going to reach out? My advice to you is to reach out sooner than later. Like delaying that doesn't really put you in a queue, but how you reach out. Like if it was me and I was like, all right, the flurries have to go. I had a family emergency, which we talked about last week, by the way. If anybody wants to go listen, we talked to like, how would we come to that decision? If Ben or I said this, I would actually be reaching out to people probably before I announced it. And to tie it in, Jeremy Ballack, he's been on the Essential Credentials a few times. Yeah, it is. Don't worry. It is part of that list. I actually called Jeremy on the phone before I ever started selling my A-Rods, which, started leading me to collecting the guy behind me. I reached out to him and said, hey, those cards that you've been looking for a while, how about if you bought mine from me? And so we came up with, a list of things that he was after. He still gives me a hard time for not selling him more Pacific stuff, but I couldn't sell him everything. But, so I will say that I reached out to him first because I wanted them to go to him. And so I think there's a responsibility in a way, and this is not to say that Ray should do this or anybody selling the collection, but there's a responsibility to try to think of like 5 collectors who will love the cards equally or more and take really good care of them. And if for some reason they had to sell, you could probably buy them back from them, right? So
because you have that relationship. For
sure. So that's where I'm at. But for you, I totally understand. So I think asking people here, I think it's sooner than later is probably the note I'm going to make here. I'm going to show a couple comments. Rage 508, welcome. Happy holidays to you as well, man. Thank you. Ray said, personally, I stepped away from and that's the thing, Ray. Like, had you posted that and said, I'll be gone for 2 weeks, don't send me any messages, I'll reach out to you personally, that probably would have saved you a lot of headache, because man,
the influx. Now, that's where I was like, I don't want to be another dude in his inbox. That was my thought. Was like, everybody's hitting this guy up. I'm not doing that.
That's the thing. I'm sure, Ray, you can speak on this if you want to, but it's like, you probably you didn't know what to expect. I mean, you probably never expected to sell. So it's really tough to think about, how that was going to go down, but it was a big decision, and you learn a lot from stuff like that for sure. And yeah, don't worry, Marigold. I literally was about to say it, but I'm like, it's a given, right? Like, it's a given. James says, agreed on the points around someone I know. I'm going to at least let them know that I'm interested, which they probably already know. Funny enough, when I got back into collecting A-Rod a bit, I actually sold them all to James here. And I didn't post about it. I reached out to him personally. He was in the area, and he actually needed a lot of those A-Rods for some sets and things that he was building. So it ended up working out perfect. Met up with him, gave him the binder, and shook hands, and then we went to a Mariners game after that. So it was pretty darn cool, but I think that is the way to go. Like, if you know people, you can eliminate getting 50, hey, is this for sale messages, and then never materializing. You know what I mean? So I think that is something, just like we're talking about, that is something worth doing. And I think if you have a collection and you're ready to sell all or part of it, do the due diligence and try to reach out to some people beforehand to save yourself the trouble, right? I mean, is that what you would do, Ben, if you were in that situation?
So I actually did that before when I first got back into cards, because I was a big Griffey guy when I was younger. So I had a pretty decent Griffey collection. And then that was like 2016, 17, I started getting back into cards. Mm-hmm. And I just had a bunch of Griffey stuff that I wanted to move. Because at that point I was kind of getting more into like Ichiro and some like vintage stuff I was interested in. I kind of wanted to like diversify my collection a little bit. And I ended up just joining some Griffey groups, finding a couple people, talking to them, and then just moving like pretty big bulk lots of Griffey cards directly to people that were like, shoot me pictures, list of what you've got, and then I'm just going to buy, 100 from you in one go. Which, I mean, win-win, right? I didn't want to list 100 cards individually on eBay and package and ship. And was like, great, one box, boom, post office, good to go. So much easier. And went to someone that was like, I know they're a Griffey collector. We chatted a little bit. Everybody's happy,
Right. And I know it's funny too, because you create a huge headache for yourself. I mean, obviously right now I'm sitting in a similar situation with other side collections where I know I need to move. It would be great to like move one of the collections to a father and son. It's not Flurry, by the way, it's other players, but I'm trying to find people who I know will really love the cards. And again, playing into the family collecting aspect. That's how we grew up getting into it. That's how a lot of people that we know got into it, from collecting with their dads or their moms, and dads bought them cards. So there's definitely a lot to be said about trying to find the right, person to get these cards to. But ultimately you do have to, at some point, either go to eBay or go to the masses and just try to, get them out as fast as you can. So so far I have, what's your budget? Here, I'll actually show everybody what I've got here. If somebody wants to add something to this list, jump right in. I got to make sure this is the, okay, this is the right document here. I got two documents going at the same time. All right. So again, we agree, Ben, and people in the chat, what is your budget? Figure that out first. That's the biggest thing when it comes to saying, oh my gosh, a super collector is selling out. What do I do? It's like, well, okay, how much do I have to spend? If you have $100 or $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever, you can then determine the rest of this, which is what cards would I want that are very rare, that haven't been seen that often. So of course the super short prints, and maybe out of 50, 25 or less. Do you already have a top 25 want list? Buy cards from that first. Big piece of advice. Ben and I have this. Luke has this. I'm sure a lot of others in chat do. James, I know you do. Rage. It's like, if you don't have some sort of goal oriented idea of like want lists and things that you want to add, that'll help prioritize exactly what you're going for. So you don't get strayed by, this cool parallel out of like 550 or 400 or whatever. Like, yeah, it looks great, but like, no, stick to the list, So
I'll go one step further. The list that I have is the top 25. And then I have a secondary list that's super rare stuff I never see. That's probably not that expensive when it does come up. That's
important though.
Buy it right now. And I have about 50 cards on that list this card might only cost me $40, but it never comes up. And if it shows up, that's a buy it now. It's on the list. You might not see it again. Kind of card.
Have you ever seen that like button push GIF where it's like it got the dudes pushing the button a million times?
Yeah, the number of times when like, well, I mean, that one's numbered out of 100, but you never see it.
It's like
that's a buy it now, right now. Yeah, I don't care.
Insta buy for sure.
Having that like what I would call like second tier list, because you have the 25. It's like, this is an awesome list. Getting any one of these would be a big deal. And then I have this other list of like I said, like 40 to 50 that's in the second tier list. That's like not going to be that expensive, but if it comes up, just get it now because it's on this list because you haven't seen it.
Right.
Or you saw it once somewhere and it's in a PC and you're not getting that copy.
Yep. Huge. It's a great idea to have both. I'll get to the comments here in just a second. I'm just going to finish what I've got. And then the fourth thing I have is reach out sooner than later. Make sure it's a personable message too. I mean, by the way, technology is amazing nowadays. For anybody that doesn't know, audio messages are really easy to do, and you can get a lot more emotion in those than you can a text message. Now, if you don't know the person, nobody's going to hold the recording button and do an audio message, but I've sent them to Ben. I've sent them to other collectors. Yep. I've sent one to people who are selling Flurry stuff, like thanking them or like saying, hey, this is a card I've been after. It can really go a long way. So like the more personable you can be with this person who is selling, the better chance they're going to have. I know you and I would be this way, Ben. If somebody went that route with me, I'd be like, oh, okay, this is somebody I actually want to work with. But if it's like some flipper just constantly like, hey, how much is this? Can I get this? Can I get this? Why are you waiting? Like, you're going to the back of the line there, pal. Yep. So I think that's what I've got so far. Couple of funny things here. Rage said, I have a ton. I need to move my damn self. Welcome to the club. I think a lot of people.
Everybody in here.
Yeah, most of us do. And then, time to watch the Hawks. Roommates are finished playing. In the meantime, happy holidays. Yep, hope the Hawks just completely dominate today. I need some fantasy points from a few of the players on that team. Big thing from Ray said, I was not expecting the response I received from the post, honestly. There have been people that have expressed interest on certain cars for 5+ years. Some I remembered and some I didn't. I mean, that's all fair, right? How could you, right?
You can't. And that's where I was also coming from of like, Ray has some cards that people saw and were like, I want that. Whenever Ray is getting rid of that card, I want that. And I'll be tracking that particular copy for 3-5 years. Like, I'm not in that group with Ray. So like, I get it. And those people definitely should have like first option on those. But if they trickle down, Ray?
Yeah.
I'm here.
But that's thinking that I wish more people had. You know, you run into.
To me, it comes from like a respect of the hobby, right? Like these are other people that are in the hobby that have been in it. They've been waiting. They really want one of these. Like, they're also going to really love having that copy of that card. And like, I can't hate on that. Absolutely. Get it. Enjoy it. Like, I'm happy for you, honestly, to get a copy coming from like an amazing collection. Go for it.
I wish more people thought that way. You know, I think we've been affected by that, good and bad. We've been affected by it in a good way where somebody's reached out to us and say, hey, you know, you're somebody who I know is going to love this card. And you're like, wow, I feel honored. Thank you for doing that. And then you see, you know, a Flurry or an Ichiro go to, John Smith, who's like, well, I just thought it was a cool card. And I'm going to hold on to it for a while. You're just like,
we're not going to talk about that.
But it's part of the hobby, and it doesn't happen that often. So I don't want to sound like I'm complaining here. It's going to happen. It's going to happen again and again and again and again. Just how it goes. There's too much stuff out there, but it feels great when it goes the other way for sure. Rage says 100% agree with the want list before you end up with a card store in a spare bedroom like me and your wife wants to kill you. Honesty is the best policy. That's all I'm going to say to that. I remember hearing, actually, Tanner in his book, if anybody's read Tanner Jones's book, there's a little segment about like the stigma of wives not being okay or being kept in the dark when it comes to collecting. I mean, I'm not married, but hopefully one day when I am, I will be very open about what I'm spending. Ben, you can speak on this. I mean,
yeah, for some of us that have been in the hobby for a long time, maybe they weren't so happy, and then COVID happened, and all of a sudden they're not so upset about your hobby.
Yeah,
It's done very well.
That's a good point.
But it's also like, be collecting within your means, have a budget. Like, that's the first item for a reason. Like, even if you're going to be buying cards in any month, but especially doing something like a deal with a collector that's liquidating a bunch of cards, like,
right.
But get cards within your means. Be smart about it.
Yeah,
that's
100%.
First rule. It's a hobby. Don't go into debt over it.
Yeah, I'm going to add something to this list. Avoid trying to buy cards just because others want them. And
that's a really good rule. And also, don't buy a card just because it's now available right now and you get too excited.
Right,
so,
right.
I don't know what you would call it, like to
the want list. Then go astray? Like what's the phrase I should put here? Then go beyond that, or then
stick to the want list, then evaluate budget and determine if there are other cards you can get.
And see if there's something else you can get. All right. That's a great one. I do want to say, go ahead.
Ray makes this hard because Ray has a website that has everything scanned that you can go through, and you can just, and a lot of super collectors do this, they have their collection posted somewhere.
Right.
So you can go through and you just go, ooh, that one. Ooh, that would be fun. And it's very easy to go, I was really looking for like 40, 50 cards that would be really exciting to have. And now I have a list of 130.
Right. That's a very, very good point. It's tough not to when you can see them all. I imagine just looking at them in person. He says, there's one reason I did that post. So hopefully, if I mentioned years ago that if I ever decide to sell, I would give them the first chance. I want to stick to my word. That is a big one as well. I have a couple of friends who have a couple of Marc-Andre Fleuries that I've asked about. Like once a year, once every 6 months, I kind of jokingly like, hey, you want to trade for this or whatever? And I like, haha, yeah, no, I get it. I love that card. But if I ever do sell, I'll make sure to reach out. It's more of a playful banter thing, but it's nice at the same time to kind of remind them just in case something were to come up. And I've had others do the same to me. And I'm like, look, this card's never going anywhere. However, because you're so persistent and you're nice and you've told me exactly why, like if I ever have to move it, I'll reach out. So hopefully, if that ever happens, we'll do that. Those cards for sure. As Ben, I'm sure, has a few of those flying under the radar.
The tier 2 list. The tier 2 list is the flyer under the radar. Like you never see that one. Most people don't even know that card is a thing. Like
right.
Those you want to have in that second
list.
I'm gonna get 4 or 5 from my top 25, and then any of these I can get from this second tier list. Like I want them, I might not see them again.
Yeah, don't even. Yeah, it's hard not to say it right now, but yeah, don't say it.
Nope. I'm not saying it.
Just admit it. It's just a bunch of base cards. That's all it is.
Sure. Yeah.
This is for sure. She's cool with it. Just need to consolidate. Yeah, for sure. We're all looking to consolidate for sure. So hopefully you can do that in the near future.
And this is like a microcosm of having that plan, right, for your collection. Like you're having the option when somebody is selling off a large portion of their collection that you're interested in, of like really thinking about your collection and what you want for your collection, being reasonable at how many cards you want.
I'm going to add this on here because this is what you're basically talking about. Sell to help fund your purchase from this super collector. Yeah. Is there some cards or things that you can move, right? Or are there some things that you would like less than these cards from this collector? I mean, because we all kind of go off on a little side quests, as we've called them. And I think it's important to evaluate, like for instance, if, the big flurry collector was like, Matt, I think I'm ready to sell you one of my shields. I'd say, okay, well, that is going to be at least
What is it?
$2,000.
What glass nows are going, or what do you
Well,
do?
yeah. I mean, I've gotten to the point where pretty much everything that's not flurry can probably leave the collection at some point, which
Yeah.
is a bit of a shame. But it comes down to like eventually, I'm not going to be able to afford anything unless I do. So, knowing what knowing what's coming out, right? You have to remember, like I have a little bit of insight on. Do I know how much it's going to be? No, but I mean, we've collected long enough. I think I know what it's going to be. So I'm in that same boat. I really am. But it's a good thing to think about. All right, so we've got all these down. Ben, is there anything else that we don't have on here that you think? What do we got now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 so far. Maybe 3 more to add to the list.
Yeah.
Luke. One day, my friend. I don't know. We're all probably around the same age, but yeah, one day. I mean, unless you only have red stuff, then hats off to you for that. Anything, Ben, that you're thinking that we can throw on this list?
Not off the top of my head, but I am thinking that last bullet point is actually more important, probably.
All right.
And I almost think that goes like right below the budget, because really I think that ties in really closely to what is my budget now, what can I sell, and that kind of ties into the communication you would have with the collector of, hey, this is kind of what I have now, but I'm going to be selling these things. If you'll work with me and we can develop like a rapport, I don't know, maybe we kind of have the communication thing on there, but like a rapport with that super collector probably goes a long way, because they are a super collector. So it's a bunch of cards. They're not going to be selling them right away. You have time to say like, hey, I'm looking at these. I want to work with you. I've got some things I actually think I need to sell off to fund some of the cards that I'm interested in from you. But if we can stay in dialogue, like, 3 months from now, however long it takes you to get through your cards, like, I want to be in contact with you. So maybe like one of the items is like staying in contact with the person.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's big. Yep. Just say, stay. Let's see here. Stay in contact with the seller. That's big. I have a question for Luke then. I mean, because he said this. He said, I own nothing else. All right. So Luke, what is your approach going to be if there's ever, like, let's say Dead Guy Cardboard I can't remember his name. I think it's Ben as well. Ben Schneider, I want to say, but he was the first 90s guy that I found other than Aaron Davis back when he was doing Sheffield. So Luke, what do you do? Because you don't have any cards you'd sell. So what do you do when a situation like this comes up? If Dead Guy Cardboard were to say, okay, I'm selling all my Barry Larkins, and he's got pretty much every nice 90s card that ever came out of him, what's your approach? Do you always keep a few grand set aside? The Mirror Gold. So maybe not just him specifically, Luke, but like when you have that type of a person selling out, do you have a savings card account or something that you can use to purchase cards? Because I would be in a tough spot. I'd be like, okay, well, if I have nothing to sell, like, what do I do? Like remortgage the house or whatever, like what do you do? So that's a tough one. I think these are all really, really good. Maybe we could add 1 more or 2 more, but I think this is a really, really strong list and something to keep in mind always, right? Because you were saying, Ben, you feel like this is going to happen more and more next year. What makes you think that more super collectors are going to sell their collections?
I would say it's potentially going to happen more with people who were in like the 90s to early 2000s era of collecting because of our age now. Like we're just entering a different period of life. Like I'm just seeing that with Thomas, like other people that are selling their collections because they've just gained so much value throughout the years. Like time to sell that and like buy some land, buy a house, or put down like a down payment on a house. Like more that period than maybe some of like the modern or ultra modern stuff. But people at our age, like 30s, 40s, like stuff is going to happen with your life. Your kids are going to college, like you're entering a different phase of life. You know, you want to maybe buy your first house, that sort of stuff. I think because cards have become so valuable, people that have really significant collections that have been doing it for like a decade plus now have the option to like leverage that to do something that actually affects their day-to-day life. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see more people with a collection that's significant that go, I could make a change now. I could get married, maybe. I can buy the ring. I could do the whole wedding, and we could do, something really, really nice for our wedding that I wouldn't have been able to afford before. Like, I get that, and I see that potentially happening with more 90s, early 2000s collectors. Like, it just wouldn't surprise me because of the value of the cards now.
That is a really good point. And I would agree with you. I think wow, good shot. Nice. But I would say that we're definitely going to see just more and more of it. It just makes sense from what you're saying. And I think too, like, you do something for as long as you do, eventually you're going to, I don't want to say get bored of it, but it is really hard to stick with something when you're collecting 90s and early 2000s and that player is no longer playing and cards aren't being made of that player. Not like Ichiro or Griffey or A-Rod or Jeter. They just will keep getting cards.
Like, a good example, like a Bonds guy, like they don't make Bonds cards anymore. So like after 2007, it's like you have a time period where you can collect his cards and you could potentially just finish it. I mean, it would be $1 million to finish every Barry Bonds card, but there's a finite list, right, of his stuff outside of like some Leaf and some stuff that was done in like the 2010s that like maybe wouldn't excite you, but like playing years Barry Bonds, that was the big stuff, the top stuff, like that's it. So you could actually get to the point where you're like, I'm 93% done. I'm kind of happy. I had a good run. This was really fun. It's time to like move on to the next thing. Right. And I totally get that. Like that makes sense to me.
There is an end game when you're collecting those players. I do want to show a couple more comments, and Rage has a suggestion for one to add. I'm blessed to have the ability to buy up front and spread out the pain later. If I can't afford to buy it, I guess I have to let it pass. But I think, Luke, you already know if there's a card out there that you can't afford. I don't know what the Larkin credentials, the greenish yellow card. I think is that future? That the credentials future, or no, is that the now? I can't remember the colors. It's been too long. But either of those, if they're super low numbered, that might be on the list of can't have it. Or like the 101, a 101 Flair Showcase Masterpiece, that might be on the can't afford list. But you already know those cards, right, Ben? Like you already know you're not going to be like, hey, Ray, can I get that Ultimate Ichiro, or can I get the the EX? Like,
it's not even one of the first ones I'm thinking about. Yeah, I immediately to Ray's comment earlier, it's like that stuff that's super hard to find that I get excited about. I'm like, ooh, that one that's like an SSP or something that was like out of 25. There was a product that no one opened. Like, most of those probably got tossed. I want one of the few that's out there.
For sure. Yeah, no, those are good. Those are the ones I think that you and I appreciate even more, like the hidden rarity per se, right? Like there's some cards that I got, that are upper deck before I ever started working there that I'm like, I know these are really rare. People don't know how rare they are, but like some image variation that doesn't state it anywhere on the card. I've only ever seen one ever of Flurry, so there's some like that out there. So Rage says, I would add, don't lowball them or give them janky offers.
Ooh, that's really good.
Pay them fair. As you know, they're going to be emotionally attached. It goes a long way. I'm going to add to that as well. So I'm going to add that. So to say, where can we, let's see.
So that's a really good point, because you're also cutting a corner by getting these cards from a super collector, someone that's taken the time. Their time investment, you're getting it essentially a discount because you're getting it from them, and they took the time to get all these cards.
I already know what they are hoping to sell them for. I had that experience when I bought all those flurries in bulk. I mean, again, most of these are coming from like the cup, right? I mean, these are like cup patch autographs, jersey autographs. These are big, big cards at the time and still are. So what we did is we sat down, and I wish I could have called him, but he said, hey, let's just hop on Messenger and we'll just go one card at a time. So I would say, okay, can I see a picture? And he would show me the picture, and I would say, all right, look at the patch. Like, think about, like, all right, this. And almost every one we were right neck and neck with, right? He was a little higher, I was a little higher. We just found the middle ground on every card. There was one where he's like, it's the UD Black patch auto out of 5. I don't think that card will ever show up for sale. I'm very happy to own that card. It's one of my favorites for sure. But when he showed me he had that, he goes, I'm not thinking I'm going to sell this. So in that case, it's like, okay, I need to make an offer that's like 25 to 35% higher than what it would probably go for if it wasn't coming from him. And so I did that to get that card, but then he sent me a couple for free and like let me pay low on some. It's gonna even out. The more you buy from them, the more it's gonna even out. So
it will even out.
Anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. I know you want to jump in, but yeah, just like
I don't know, that specific comment was really resonating with me because you are legit. If you're buying from a Supercollector that's liquidating, you're basically taking a shortcut. That's a hobby shortcut.
Yeah.
And it's something I actually talked to you about and said, I wonder if I'm gonna like regret buying a bunch of cards all at once that are super rare from a super collector, because then I won't have the chase anymore. It's like, well, you also might never see those cards again. So there's you have to weigh that. Like, is the chase the thing that you're enjoying, or do you really want those cards and it's time to get them? If you can get them all at once, be super fair about the value in the deal you make, because they probably took 5 years to get those cards you're going to buy all in one fell swoop in 30 seconds.
Yep, exactly.
Sweat equity, dude. These guys that collected sweat equity, and you're going to like shortcut like crazy.
We should have called the time and energy equals sweat. You know what I mean? Because we like the time and energy equity, like sweat equity, like it really is a labor of love over all these years.
Yeah. And you're going to go and be like, hey, I'm going to buy all of these from you. Like, cool. And you make a deal in a week. It's like, all right, it took them 6 years and I just got all those cards over a week of communication. Like, there's a price for that.
Yeah.
That should be like baked into like the deal you're making.
And that's such a good thing to say. There's a price to be had for buying them all from the same person that took 10 to 20 years to put them all together. So a couple more comments. Here you go. Hey, I'm doing the Millhouse for you. If you've ever seen that GIF when he like lowers his glasses and does the eyebrow thing. But then you got, Larkin is out of 25. I would buy that in a heartbeat. But yeah, the 1-on-1s could give me pause. Baseball card, Curmudgeon, still one of my favorite names that's ever popped up while we've done an episode. Nice to see you. Yep, Rage is giving you props on that one for sure. Very, very good. I've got several people that have asked for bulk discounts. Now, here's a really good point too. The hardest thing for me when trying to find comps is when you can't find sales comps for 3 years. As far as all the full tops chrome runs go, at that point you're naming your price. But that comes back to this point here. When I put a card into trading card database that I've added, oftentimes if I bought it within the last, 2 to 3 months, which I've all put them all in. Usually I put them in within a week of getting them. I just put what I paid, unless I get like a screaming deal because somebody mislisted it.
Yeah, and you're like,
that's what it's But I'm putting it at, when I list it in my collection, I put what I would sell it for. And I am pretty darn on the button with where stuff's at. So Ray, as far as that goes, I'm sure you also kind of already know what you want to sell it for. Like you'll be able to figure that out, right? You know the market of Ichiro better than anybody. So, and then, like you said, it would take at least 10 years to put a full run together. So yeah, the time and sweat equity also gets
those top chromes run. When you see like the red out of 5 on a chrome run, that red refract out of 5, you're like, yo, this full run is crazy. Or like a full, I know Ray's got like I think the full like 2005 Topps Finest refractor run. It's like, yo, no one's putting that together. Like if you want to buy that, you got to pay for the work that went into putting that thing together.
Oh, dude.
Unreal runs.
Yep, for sure, dude. It's almost unfathomable to think that someone has them all. Rage said, yep, exactly, guys. Took the words right out of my mouth on your responses. Good stuff. Yep. You got it. I think we're all like-minded collectors here. So I think we're all kind of on the same page. So I think, Ben, you've come up. That's the quote from the episode. You know, when I used to do essential credentials, Alan would typically get a quote an episode.
Yep.
My favorite one is still, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're still wrong. That's still my favorite quote that ever dropped on an episode. I wrote it down. I had it on my fridge for like 5 months before I moved here. That's
I think that's a real thing though for a collector. If you're selling a full run to someone, there's like a sweat tax. Like, if you don't want to pay the price for my run, go build your own. Good luck.
That's a great comment.
Good luck.
It's true.
You can pay the sweat tax and you can have the whole thing right now. I think that's totally fair. And that's part of the discussion you should have with someone that's selling a collection that has like completed runs.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Ryan, nice to hear from you, man. Never bought a bunch of cards from a super collector, but this is a great discussion, stuff I've never even thought about before, really. Well, good. I mean, I think Ben and I, and obviously Greg and Alan and I, when we did Essential Credentials, we really liked coming at this from an educational standpoint, right? Like, not like you don't know what you're talking about or you don't know collecting. It's more like, what do we all need to consider when this situation arises? Because as Ben's predicting, we've just seen Ray and a big Griffey collector within a month of one another. Guys that we're like blown away that they're selling off their collections decide to do so. It's going to be happening more and more now that the market's really coming back to probably where it would have been if COVID didn't happen. So how can you approach this with these guidelines, and can you be successful with these guidelines? I'm going to say yes. I think if we're looking at these guidelines we've come up with, and you're considering some of them at least, you are going to have a much better chance of adding some of the cards that this person has that you're after and you've had in your want list, that as opposed to you just like doing the typical, hey, I'd like to buy some cards from you. Like, it's not, you have a very, very small chance at that point. And I know that, you know, I'll just say, be stereotypical here. Stereotypically, as men are not the best communicators. I think some people are much more comfortable than others, depending on your job or, you know, just the environment you grew up in. But if you have this pop up and that's not your strong suit, like, hey, here's your opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, nobody in the world other than like in this instance, other than a collector, will be like totally acceptant of whatever you can give to them to like show that you care. It's like, you know, if anybody goes to church, I mean, like, you should feel as like calm and collected there to share whatever, as opposed to work with whoever else. But if you're talking with collectors, we're going to understand where you're coming from. So just be personable, you know, don't feel, you know, afraid to reach out in a more real way, because that's going to do way more for you than just being, you know, super generic. There's my teachings for the day. There you go. So yeah, I think these are all really good. Ben, is there anything else, you know, that you could think that we should add, or are we going to wrap this up?
I think we could wrap it up. I really appreciate all the comments. This was a really good discussion. You know, I think to Matt's point, like, we're talking through to educate each other. I'm 100% spitballing half the time I'm in here. Like, yeah, we're going to talk through this idea. I don't really know what we're going to talk, like, what points we're going to come up with. Like, we're just trying to work through this together. So, like, it's fun to have people in the chat, like, talking through it with us, because we're just trying to figure out what's the best way to go forward with something like this. Like, these things don't happen that often. Like Matt said, my prediction is more of these will be happening. So maybe your player comes up the next year, and let's figure out together what would be the best way to go about communicating with a collector about acquiring the cards you want. Like, we're shooting from the hip here, just having fun, trying to figure out what's best.
Right. And we all have different experiences. Like, I've bought from a super collector. Some of the guys in the chat have. You're going through it right now. You've sold as a super collector. So I think it's all relative and it's all helpful. A couple great comments here. As a seller, it's great to hear from the buyer's perspective as well. There are some great talking points. Yep. And also, try not to burp here. I don't know how to, but I feel one coming on. So you know what that means. It's like barbershop talk. We all know a ton in our own right, but I still learn every day. Knowledge is power, folks. Very well said. I mean, I don't know if we can on it.
Barbershop talk is kind of right. We're all just like, we all kind of do this hobby. We all know our own realm a little bit, and there's some cross information shared, and like that all makes us more informed as a collector.
100%, 100%. Well, I'm going to save this document. If anybody doesn't want to just like take a screenshot from this episode and hold on to this, I mean, again, I'm sure many of you will just file this away, but sometimes typing it out and seeing the words, the visual type thing is the way to go. So if anybody wants a copy of this, you can always hit me up on Instagram or hit me up on Facebook if you're in a card group that I'm in, or Ben, of course. He and I would be happy to share this with you. Great points here. So I'm going to go through. Actually, Ben, I've always been the one reading, so I'm throwing it to you. Ben, you want to just go through this one more time and see what we came up with?
Yeah. So guidelines, somewhat organized. What is your budget? First thing to consider. Are there some cards that you have that you could sell to help fund the stuff that you're really interested in that you see in the collection? What cards would I want that might be rare that I haven't seen very often? So like super, super rare things that maybe just never show up in like your eBay searches. Do you already have a top 25 want list? If not, make that. So that's like the first thing you go to, and that informs your budget.
If not, make one. There we go.
That basically links back to point one, which informs your budget. The 25 list should be linked to your budget. Like, actually, something we didn't touch on is like, you really, your 25 want list should be realistic in that it should be cards you can afford. Because I can go make a want list of just superfractors and like not realistic. So I really think there's like a true realistic want list that you should have. That's, I can get there. If I need to sell some things, I will, but it's like a real list I can actually achieve. Because then it's just depressing to have that list and never get it.
100%. 100%. Yep. I definitely added that.
Reach out sooner than later. Make sure you start that contact, start the dialogue with the person that's selling. Avoid trying to buy cards just because others want them. So like, make sure you stick to your list. Don't just, other people seem to be interested in that, so I'm going to get it.
Keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yep. Which is kind of related to that point. Like, stick to the want list, evaluate your budget, see if there's something else you can get, which kind of like informs your trickle down list. Like, some stuff is there. I didn't realize that card was worth that much, or that might be out of my budget now. Go to your secondary list. Make offers that are fair. So like, work with the seller, back to that sweat equity thing. Like, realize that they put time into building this collection and you're about to like save yourself potentially years of time looking for these cards. So be fair.
For sure.
With the deals you try to negotiate one card at a time. Within a bulk deal, I think that's like super important that every card has a value. Not, I want 100. Like, what do you think about this? Like, put a dollar amount on each card.
For sure.
And then stay in contact, follow up, build a relationship. If this is, a player that you really want to collect, this person spent a lot of time with that player buying their cards. Like, you guys could have a relationship even post doing a deal, right? Like, that's just good for the hobby all around.
Here we go.
I'll say that with Ray, I'm gonna buy some more cards from Ray. I will still talk to Ray even if he sells every Ichiro card. Like, build relationships. Like, these are other people, and if they don't have any cards anymore, there's still going to be people you can talk to and get along with. They have a thing that they share in common with you, or did at one point, and like, that's a relationship.
100%. Well, sir, I think we came up with a pretty darn good list of guidelines here. I know that's helped me going through this. I think everybody in the chat has said that these have been really helpful, so we appreciate that. And obviously, Ray, we really appreciate your input as the person who this has been primarily focused on. So I'm really glad that you were able to make it. So I hope everybody, again, gets the chance to have this happen to them. A lot of us are very passionate collectors, whether we're player collectors or set collectors or
a team collector, somebody selling off a whole team. Like, these things are going to happen, and you want to kind of be prepared to make the best acquisition you can to save yourself the most amount of time and get cards you really wanted that maybe you haven't seen before. Like, this will happen at some point to everybody.
To everyone. Yep. And eventually, nobody in this chat and nobody on this episode is going to live forever, not even close. So, we have these cards for a finite amount of time. Just remember, at the end of the day, they are still cards, but to evaluate what they're going to mean to you. And I think that's where that want list comes in mind, because you really get to spend the time thinking about why do you like each card. And we've talked about, it's too bad we didn't have our pal John in here, who's a big Roland collector, because he talks about why he loves each and every card he gets. And I'm sure Luke's done it, and other people in chat have done that. So you're welcome, Ray. Says thank you. A lot of helpful information, things to consider and be ready. Ray, obviously, we wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, you are the man, Ray. You rule.
Yeah, no, he does. His collection, it was a huge inspiration to help me with my first website, and will help me with my second one when I get going on that. You're welcome, Rage. Thanks for popping in here. Really awesome to have your comments and your wisdom in here as well. That was really nice. Ben, any closing thoughts before we say goodbye to the audience for the next couple weeks?
This was a really good discussion. I came in with like a couple ideas, and then the more we talked and had some feedback from the people in the chat, like came up with some extra ideas that I wouldn't have thought of. So I consider this like a good collaborative effort episode.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
Good. Glad you had a good time, man. And from me and probably from others that are watching, we wish you the best of luck working with Ray. I'm sure it'll be a really pleasant experience. And along the way, I'm sure you'll even establish a friendship that goes beyond collecting. Ray, if you're still here, I have one question to wrap it up. He is still here. Ray, what is the plan afterwards? I mean, if you could fast forward and everybody that needs / wants the cards that they're after gets them, and all the Ichiros are gone, are you considering a different approach to the hobby? Are you considering stepping away? What's your game plan? Very nice comment, by the way. Thank you. Definitely friends beyond the hobby. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Merry Christmas to everybody in here. While Ray's answering that, Ben, what's our game plan for the last episode of the year, and when?
I think we're going to do like a recap, right? Try to get it in right before the beginning of the year. I was going to pull up my calendar.
I think we talked about the 29th, right? 2 weeks from now?
Yep. That's what I've got. 29th. So doing like a year recap, what we collected, maybe favorite acquisitions, things we're looking forward to for next year, favorite things that happen in the hobby. For you, it's going to be your job. I already know that one.
Yeah, well, that's part of it, right? But I mean, it'll always be, as much as the job is wonderful, it's more going to be the the relationships that I've made throughout, the whole friendships along the way make it better. It's like, I actually really do. I mean,
no, it legit is the best part.
Yeah. I'm sure that would be us. Yeah. There'll be some segments to it, but it'll probably be a little bit longer than an hour. I would say maybe closer to an hour and a half, but the biggest thing is we would love to have as many of you in the chat as possible. And what I was thinking I can do too is if anybody is friends with me on Instagram, Ben or I, it doesn't matter which one you want to send it to, but if you have like a couple cards, maybe you want to send to us that were some of your favorites, we'd be happy to.
Like DM us pictures of your biggest pickups, and we'll post those too. Yeah,
that'll be really, really fun. So Ray must have already bounced, but I'm curious. Oh no, there we go. Look at that. I've manifested that comment. After taking some fellow Ichiro collectors or talking to them, I actually think I might keep a handful of cards. Again, I'm still pondering that. I think it's hard to think about stepping away completely.
I've felt the same way. It's like it would be almost impossible to let go of like X card. Like I've got like 2 or 3 where like that's really, you won't hold a couple as like a memento for the collection you had, like that sort of thing. I get that.
Yep, for sure. I think that's going to be a discussion that I would love to have Ray come on here post sales and talk about what he kept and what his plan is going forward. So Ray, if you're up for that, we would love to have you back on at some point. But awesome. Well, Ben, pleasure as always. I'm always going to point this way because my camera's backwards, funny enough. See, mine is like, see how it's
that messes with me every time.
Yeah, so I want to go like this, but because normally when I do this, when we do these central credentials, it would be pointing the right way, but I can actually point to the correct way. So Always a pleasure having you on here, and look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. And it could be a great end of the year wrap up episode.
Yep.
Thanks
Looking
for your
forward
time.
to have everyone back. I hope everybody can join on the 29th. That'll be fun.
For sure. All right. Good night, everybody. Enjoy the Seahawk game. Go Hawks, and we'll catch you in 2 weeks. Happy holidays.